Let us not take this planet for granted. I do not take tonight for granted. Thank you so very much.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Omega Files. I'm your host, Dr. Freedom, and tonight we've gathered for another illustrious Pick 3. This time, I had everybody go out and say, look, now there's a lot of folks out there who've touched on this subject, but we've never done this before ourselves. I decided, look, for some strange reason, a hole opens in the time-space continuum, and you are zonked with the power of being in control of the BBC. And through some quirk in the accounting department, probably some money that got funneled out of the royal wedding, you end up having enough money to put together and revive 3 of the missing episodes. But here's the bonus. You can not only just animate it, you also got the budget to do it live action if you want. So I was like, okay, so I just threw this to everybody. Would you, pick 3 of these serials that you'd like that are currently missing? Then would you like to have them animated or live action? And then I threw in, just as a bonus question for shits and giggles, if you're going to do it live action, it's a Troughton story, who would you pick to play Troughton? Now, earlier, somebody asked me if they could use living or dead actors. And I'm like thinking, if you could use dead actors, you just pick Patrick Troughton. But I don't know why they didn't think of that. But okay. Let's get into it. Let's get onto it. Let's start down at the bottom this time once again, because I seem to have seem to like doing that. I start at the bottom and work my way up. All right, let's go to Texas Tim. Tim, going ahead. Which 3 would you pick to bring back?
Well, first of all, I would never recast or redo them that way. So I'd say they'd either be found or animated. I would start with Marco Polo, mainly because it's only ever been seen the one time, at least back in 1964. I don't know if that was shipped out to other places, which is why we don't have it. And it's very early days. They were still finding their way. This is only the 4th serial, and it's a good historical. It's a good listen if you listen to the BBC audio version with narration. But I'd like to see if it lives up to its reputation, because the people that have seen it say it's outstanding and it's the best thing they ever saw, 50 some odd years ago, which I'd like to see if it stands up to that. So that's my choice for the first one. But again, I wouldn't want to see it recast. I'd rather just see it animated if they don't find it, in fact, which would be a better option. The second one I picked would be the Dalek Master Plan. We have 3 of those. And it's like the biggest, most epic story ever attempted. It even has a prologue episode, which is really cool. And it's also the first occasion where Doctor Who ever appeared on Christmas Day. Nice. Just by accident. It's a throwaway episode, but cool. I would go with that one just because it's a big attempt at doing a big, long, epic 3-month story. I mean, and it's for the most part another one that I've listened to, and it's a good one. And my third choice would be, for the second Doctor, be Fury from the Deep, because it is a completely missing episode, and it'd be fun to see it animated. I think they could do a lot with it as an animation, because it's got a lot of cool, horrific stuff in it. I mean, this was the Monster Doctor at the time, and this has got some cool scares in it, I think, even though at the end of it, nobody dies. It's a good farewell to Victoria as well. So those are my 3 for now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I agree with you on Marco Polo, definitely. I would love to see that one back, even if it's just, animated, because, from what we've seen, they still have some color photos and all that from behind the scenes and whatnot. And it looks like they really went out of their way to make that a really epic episode, even though they were still operating on whatever budget they had at that point. And I'd really love to see that one come back. That's one of my top ones right there. Okay, let's move on to Connor.
I haven't, unfortunately, listened to any of the audios that are available for the missing episodes, or even read any of the books, so I'm not really clued up on why I would choose these particularly. But some of these are based purely on what I've heard about the stories. So, for example, as Tim said, the first one I would choose would be Fury from the Deep, because I've heard about how scary that one is, and also it seems like a bit of a fan favorite within the missing episodes community to actually be found. And from the stills I've seen of the guy with the wide mouth looking sinister, that sort of stuff to me is what I associate with Doctor Who. So I think Fury from the Deep would be the first one, the one that I would primarily want to be found or remade. All these would be with animation, I think, because I don't think you can really recast the Doctor. They did well with David Bradley, but I think apart from that, and also I don't think there is really anyone out there that is quite like Patrick Troughton. So I think that's a bit of a harder task than to cast someone like David Bradley as Hartnell. The second one would be Evil of the Daleks. And the third one, which is a bit of a left field choice actually, but I would like to see it, is the Massacre. Purely because I think the earlier historicals especially the first Doctor were always really good from the other ones that I've seen, and that's sort of one of the ones that kind of are quite fascinating. The only downside to that is that it's the first appearance of Dodo, so whether or not that'd be worth finding or not is another question.
Okay, also, if I remember right, wasn't the Massacre the one where it's the first time the Doctor encountered one of his own doppelgangers? William Hartnell playing two roles in that one, if I remember right. Yeah, the Abbot of Amboise or something like that.
Yeah, he disappears for like 2 of the episodes and then comes back.
Yeah.
While Stephen does the most of the story.
Okay, Elijah, go on ahead.
All right, I came prepared today. So, as most of you will know, that Graham Strong, one of the people who actually recorded a lot of Missing Doctor Who, passed away this weekend. So here are my 3. And then I also listed who actually recorded these stories for audio. I don't think recasting would be as great as actually using the audio and animating. So my first choice is Marco Polo, who was recorded by David Holman and James Russell. And then second, Dalek's Master Plan, also David Holman and Graham Strong. And then Galaxy 4, David Holman as well. So those are my 3.
All righty. Okay, let's move up to AJ. Go on ahead.
Hi there. Mine are really boring, I must say. They're all historicals. The first one I've got is Marco Polo, which Tim stole. Personally, I would love to see that one refilmed with a full cast, black and white, the whole shebang. The second one is The Mythmakers. That one I definitely would love to see because, again, pure history. I mean, you can't get any better than that. The third one I would like to see, which I got the book for here, is The Highlanders. There we go, The Highlanders. That one I'd probably like to see animated because there is no one like Patrick Troughton, like we said earlier. I mean, you could have, what's his name, who played Jamie, Fraser Hines, but he's a bit old to be Patrick Troughton, I guess. And I picked a fourth one, The Macra Terror. I thought that would be a really interesting one to see filmed for today, with the new special effects, so you can get a better look at the Macra and how evil and crazy they look.
All righty. Okay, let's move over to William.
All right, I might have did a little bit too much homework because I picked 3 first and 3 seconds Doctor stories, and I explained how it works. Well, the first one I wanted to see animated is The Crusade, because that doesn't any episode that exists. So, and then like the one AJ picked out, the second one I like from the first I want to see animated is The Mythmakers, because they introduced Katarina. I think it did. I'm getting no. So, and then my third one, which I would like to see if I had the budget, done live, video with David Bradley as the first Doctor, would be the Dalek Master Plan. Now, in this thing, the episode of the Feast of Stephen, I would take that out and put the Mission to the Unknown in the beginning. And since Doctor Who is a 55-minute episode, you can almost say 2 episodes is being done in 1 hour, like that. So you could knock it down to 6 episodes, and then for the Dalek Master Plan, if of course I got the budget for that long storyline, so that'd be interesting to do. Now for my 3 picks of the second Doctor, the 2 I want to see animated is the faceless ones, because I think we only got maybe 1 or 2 episodes of that existing, so I would love to see that completely done. And then the next one is I think AJ picked this one too, is Fury from the Deep, because it is a scary episode. I heard so much about it. I would love to see that one completely. Now my final choice would be this one will be filmed too, live, and that would be the Macro Terror. And then since I got the budget for it, I could update, like AJ said, how they look like that, and maybe expand the story a little bit more to make it more scary like that. Now my pick, who to pick play the Patrick Troughton role, will be I don't know if everybody knows him. His name is Harry Melling. With that I got the budget, I could make him look a little older to make him look like a little bit like Patrick Troughton. Now anybody he is a younger person, he's an actor, but anybody who does their homework know that he is Patrick Troughton's grandson. So that's why I picked him to do the role, because with the makeup we could do now to age people, he could look like his grandfather a little bit. So that's my 3, and even though I overdid it, of each Doctor.
Okay, let's see. Okay, Bo, go on ahead.
Yep. I would redo Marco Polo as a live action, using the cast from Adventure in Space and Time, and I would animate Evil of the Daleks. I really would like to see that full episode, and I would animate the Abominable Snowman. It'll be interesting to see the Yeti being animated. So yes, that's my top 3.
Okay, let's move on up to Doctor Who Commentator.
Okay, me. So I should point out right off the bat that all my choices would be animated in nature, so we can get that out of the way. The first one I would go for is the Celestial Toy Maker, simply because that is a very fascinating, if not potentially magical, for lack of a better word, episode. There's so much you could definitely do with that, with the animation. I mean, I pointed this back in our last top 3. Just the whole thing of the chairs that can kill you has always captured my imagination. I'm just thinking, wow, how on earth did they do that with the dolls going on there? But the second one I'd go for is the Dalek Master Plan, just because obviously it is one of the most iconic episodes, being 12 episodes. What more could you want from that, and the various races that you have through there? It'd be nice to see them animated. And my third one is the prequel to Dalek Master Plan, Mission to the Unknown, the only episode, as far as I'm aware, that has no Doctor, no companions. I'm aware that Ian Levine did commission a animated episode. I haven't properly seen it, but I would like to see a proper BBC Doctor Who animation of Mission to the Unknown.
All righty. Okay, and that leaves Philip. Go on ahead.
My first pick 3 is the Macro Terror, which has been spoken of before. Now all of my picks are animated as well. I would have the Doctor being voiced by, say, Christopher Thompson. He's a very well-known voice artist. Also have Michelle Ryan voice Polly in that story. I didn't know who to pick for Ben, but any Scottish actor who's got an accent and who's quite young can be him in that story, and someone and anybody else who can. No, sorry, Ben. I meant could be someone like Charlie Seahawk. No one knows this guy, but I think Connor might. But Charlie C. Hawkins, who used to be in EastEnders, he's a bit of a Cockney, so he can play Ben in that vocal wise. And then you've got anybody that can do a Scottish accent for Jamie. My second choice would be Hugh from the Deep, which is yet again being spoken about. Again, I would have Christopher Thompson voice the second Doctor. Victoria, I thought, who was that Victoria? Who was it? Oh, I can't find. I didn't write her name down. I did have someone in mind, but I can't think who it would be to have to play Victoria. My third pick 3 was The Savages, William Hartnell. And obviously you still have Peter Purvis can voice Stephen Taylor because he's still very, very recognizable with that voice. Then you can have Charlie Hayes, who is Wendy Padbury's daughter, play voice Dodo on that one. And then you got I don't know who would play William Hartnell, but then there would be another voice artist who can do a William Hartnell voice artist. So those are my pick 3 for the moment.
Okay, so yeah, we all had a little fun, just coming up with different episodes and all that we'd like to see. It's just there's only like 29 total serials. Now we're down to 97 missing serials total. Marco Polo was the one they thought for sure they would find at least one episode of it, because I think that one was the most widely distributed out of all of them. Yet they haven't found a single bit of it, I don't think, other than some film prints and some behind the scenes pics, ain't it?
I thought that was one of the ones that they didn't distribute that far because they figured it was long and boring or something, or they were trying to in the early days. I mean, I don't know.
That was one of the most distributed episodes.
Yeah, that one. Okay. Yeah, Marco Polo was one of the. I think they had 7 film prints circulating, and none of them.
That's weird.
None of them are returned.
Okay, let's pop this up real quick. Yeah, so mine definitely would have been to Marco Polo because, as I said before, there's a lot of there's some behind the scenes color photos and all that, and of course you got the telesnaps version and whatnot, and it just gives you an idea. They really wanted to make this hell of an epic story, and I just love to see it. Either just animated, or if they did a live action. Oh gosh, with today's budget, it would be really awesome. Also, the other one I had come up with, of course, was the Highlanders, because that introduced Jamie McCrimmon, who became one of the longest-running companions on the show. Originally, he had just popped up for that episode, but he was so well-liked and all that, they asked him to come back and stay on. And let's see. Now, for the third one, I was having such a hard time narrowing it down because, there's so many ones out there, but the one I keep hearing about is the Underwater Menace. So I'm really curious because I've not watched this in any shape or form, whatsoever. So, out of curiosity, I'd like to see that one come back as an animated serial as well. Okay, so just a few out there, 29 total serials, 97 individual tracks or whatever. Sorry, no, total stories, but 97 individual serial parts, for those still missing. All right, so a lot of good ideas out there, I heard. But it's like, come on, guys, British actors, type a few in, if you want to replace, Now, of course, replacing Patrick Troughton would be, almost impossible. But a couple names that popped up off the top of my head, the one I kept hearing, like I said, you could probably pull it off and say, I'm going off on a limb saying Eddie Redmayne. Andrew Garfield, just a couple off the top of my head, if you wanted to go that route. But all I did was I typed in British actors and just ran down the list. And I didn't really go, just general appearance around that age, that, Troughton was at the time. Or you could even go a little younger and just, we've got amazing makeup artists these days. You can make these guys look a little older. Okay, Tim, you got your hand up. What you got in your mind?
Well, the reason I'm against that is because all of these missing stories exist as audio productions now, and they're all very good. And you would, if they did do a redo on any of these, you would be forever comparing the two and saying, well, see, this is why that's not as good as this one. It's not original or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So to me, it'd be better that all these stories that are missing would be animated, get over the next 5 or 6 years or so. You never know. Maybe a couple of others will pop up. I don't know, get to work, Marlboro Man. But I mean, it's just, to me, it just seems like it's not a good idea to do recast or redo these stories unless you did it with a current doctor and you said, okay, guess what, we're going to remake this story like they did. For example, they remade that novel for David Tennant. They redid which one was it, Philip? The
Human Nature.
Human Nature, yeah, which was a 7th Doctor novel, and it worked out okay, and I don't think anybody was hurt by it. The Doctor Who fans are, but I mean, my point is I can't see the point in remaking these stories with a new cast. I just think that you'd be forever comparing them to the original since we have those on audio.
True. But I was saying, it was just a little fun. Oh, go ahead, Philip.
But then visually, it'll be a lot more upgraded. And although we have them on audio, it'll be nice to see something being.
Well, you could do that with the animation, couldn't you? I mean, not that they have so far. So far, they've been pretty rinky-dinky with the. I mean, it hasn't really been stellar. But if they had a budget, they could do some good, maybe CGI animation. It would be really good. So,
yeah.
Okay, well, you've had your hand up for a minute or two, so go ahead.
Yeah, a few years ago, there was it was on YouTube. I think it got removed. They did a reimagining of Power of the Daleks with a different actor, and some other actors doing those little a 3 or 4 part story like that, and it was pretty good. And it was pretty good. Now, if I had the money, a real budget, and I was gonna redo the Patrick Troughton story, don't make a difference which one it is, then I would have to put an actor that's a name. So the first one that pops in my head, it would be Tom Ellis, because of he's not doing Lucifer now, but that's a recognizable name. Now I know people will say, well, he doesn't look like Patrick Troughton, but I'm saying I'm doing my reimagining of it, because I'm gonna put a lot of money in the special effects and all that. So I'm gonna have him, and of course I'm gonna have other people doing his campaign like that, depending on what story of Patrick Troughton I'm gonna be using.
Well, a lot of people thought Troughton was the devil anyway. There you go.
Yeah.
So kind of similar to Peter Cushing then, where they did the Doctor Who and the Daleks. And,
yeah, but see, that was done in the movies, and it was based on those stories like that. But since the budget back then was different. The way you got now.
I wish I'd ripped a copy of that Power of the Daleks thing, because notice how fast the BBC came down on that. It was pretty well done. I enjoyed it. It was a reimagining of the story Power of the Daleks, and it was it wasn't too bad. Even the guy they had playing, the Doctor was, he didn't look anything like the Doctor at that time, but he was a pretty good actor. I got into it. And
yeah, that was a great story.
I think it was almost the Axonar of what you call it, because the BBC had it yanked off YouTube almost fast as lightning once they saw how positive the response was on it. Okay,
which is unusual. There are recognizable names in that story, like Lisa Bauman and all the other ones.
Yeah. Okay, Connor, you've had your hand up a couple minutes. Go ahead.
I mean, if we were to go for production value-wise and we were to go live action, I think if you wanted to appeal to a child audience as well, which is something that Doctor Who largely has to do, I think maybe remaking something like the Celestial Toymaker, which will encompass like a load of bold, bright colours. And also, it's kind of like a fantastical sort of story with this this toy maker and the toy room and everything, all these soldiers and stuff. Even the Mind Robber, to some degree, I think you could redo. No, it's not.
I don't think the toy maker would get by today's censors, though, because it's a guy trying to kill people with everyday objects, kind of like the Autons did a couple of years later. And it's like they got a lot of flack from the White House crew, saying that you can't do that to children. Children can't see everyday objects as something that's fatal. You know what I mean? So I don't know if you get away with that from today. Today is far too PC to even have anything dangerous for children.
You could do that, because children today are not so scared and not so affected by things as that these days.
They probably don't even watch Doctor Who.
Yeah, because look at some of the episodes we've had not too long ago, like Night Terrors, where people were being turned into dolls, and they were creepy, creepy dolls, man. They were chasing people around and stuff. It's like, so they could probably get away with it. Heck, and then again, you had the Master killing people with a blow-up chair. That was scary as hell back then.
It would really depend on how many parents are complaining to Ofcom, really.
Yeah, the remnants of the White House legacy. It's just crazy. Okay, so like I said, we just mainly did it as an exercise, just to have a little fun. Use your imagination a bit. Plus there are rumors going around that there could be more episodes out there that are being animated, and of course, there's always the omnipresent rumor that Philip Morris is hoarding some. So, either way, we don't know what the future will hold. Some guy down there in the middle of nowhere and Podunk, Africa or something, one of these days could open up and there's the magical hidden vault. And hopefully they haven't been eaten by evil alien cockroaches or whatever got growing down there in the jungle. But because I know there were some things that were found that the problem is when they film these, the film has to be kept at a certain environment, or otherwise they rapidly deteriorate in some cases and whatnot. So, okay, Tim, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I would think today your best bet would probably be private collectors who are still sitting on a couple here or there, although most of them have voluntarily turned them in and given the BBC a copy. But the idea that you're going to find any in some studio from over 50 years ago, I mean, it's probably been moved around or rejuvenated and they've thrown stuff away, is more and more unlikely as time goes by. I'm guessing there may be a couple of people not in the know that bought these things years ago and didn't even realize that they were missing or wanted. So I think that's where another one might turn up, if at all.
I could see that happening.
Yeah, because you never know what the future will hold. Because, all right, just to throw you an example, I remember this was many moons ago. How many here are familiar with a country artist named Hank Williams Jr.? Anybody?
Country singer.
Okay. I remember this had to have been about, I forgot to look it up. Sorry, folks out there, but you may want to. But they had literally found in an attic somewhere down south this film that was taken of his father, Hank Williams, singing a song that was called, I believe, was You're on My Lonely Mind. And the scary part is, even though this film canister had sat in an attic in the South through summers, winters, rains, in an climate-controlled environment, they pulled it out, and it rolled just like it had just been shot. Matter of fact, if you go out and look up the song "You Are on My Only Mind," or "You're on My Lonely Mind," Hank Williams did a music video where he sings the song, and they mix him in with his father in the original footage. And it's scary. You never know. There might be a quirk of nature. There might be some still out there, and through some rather quirky nonsense or odd set of circumstances, they might survive. It's been done before. Okay, Philip. Got to unmute yourself.
In regards to censorship of today's kids' sensibility, wouldn't like View from the Deep be a bit near the knuckle when you're showing kids that an infected person is gassing someone using that, when they're gassing the people? And wouldn't that be a bit terrifying for the kids to watch as well? If you
Well, they might be confused, but all they're gonna see is two people opening their mouths and then the lady passing out.
With today's technology, they'll show some sort of like a visual imagery of sort of heat haze.
That's why the series today has to walk a fine line, because they want to be slightly scary for the younger viewers, but they have to keep it in check if they don't really terrify anybody or get too graphic with it. So,
Doctor Who, when it comes to the BBC, Doctor Who more or less can skirt about a certificate 12, and really I think Fury from the Deep, even with today's standards, if you did it pretty much like it was before, it would pretty much be a certificate 12 nature, I think.
But isn't that a danger for Doctor Who? If they become too soft on themselves and don't go...
A lot of people would say they have, Phil. You've been on the internet.
Yeah, well, true, but then it makes Doctor Who something that's not of interest to people. They go, "Oh, this is rubbish," because it's not hitting a certain point of making them go, "Wow, oh my God, I can't believe they did that."
Well, they could do two versions. If they're gonna animate one, that could put on TV that's clean, and then when you do the DVD one, you can have the uncut one that shows more of a little scary scenes and all that.
Okay, AJ, you've had your hand up for a couple of minutes. Go ahead.
Yeah, just about the whole missing footage thing. People here in Australia, look in your attics and your basements and whatnot. There's usually footage laying around. I mean, I've heard a few times they found a few over here, didn't they?
Yep. What they found was the cut bits, because apparently the Australian censors back in the day were really they would cut the hell out of Doctor Who episodes because they thought they were too scary. And I think there's even one of the DVDs they released that was missing one scene because they got the episode from Australia, and they did a little jiggery pokery and made it work with the soundtrack. But what they did was they used a bit of footage they'd already shown or something. I think it was, I can't remember which one it was.
War Machines.
War Machines, was it?
War Machines, okay. But in other words, they're on the DVD, The Lost Years, or what was it called? The
Lost in Time, I think.
They have a whole section of clips that were cut from Australian episodes that they recovered because they had the clips. They didn't have the episodes. They had the bits they cut out. So,
okay.
I can't
well,
remember.
I think there's like 21 minutes of censorship footage they found that's cut, something like that.
Even the BBC made them go back and re-edit the end of The Deadly Assassin and cut out the bit where he's held underwater, and at the end of episode 3. And when they put the DVD out, they had to recover that footage from an American videotape because somebody had recorded the original off television before it had been edited.
Oh.
So it's amazing what the restoration team has to do sometimes to get these things back as they were.
Plus, I remember we had an episode that was recovered out of a car boot sale.
Yeah,
Crusader,
one of the Dalek master plans was found in a church basement or something. One of those ones.
Yeah, that and somebody brought it. Yeah, who was it? It brought up earlier about they wanted was it Mythmakers? That's right, because Katarina or it's like it seemed like back then there was a revolving door on the TARDIS around that area. Remember, you had Katarina, Vicky, Dodo, and all right, and then you had what's her name come in. She gets zonked by the Dalek time. Yeah.
That was because John Wiles wasn't a really good producer. He didn't want to be a producer, and he came in and they wanted to get rid of Maureen O'Brien, and so they said, well, we'll just introduce somebody in the last episode, and that's what they did in the Mythmakers. And then they realized having a Trojan chick around wasn't really going to work because she wouldn't know anything about today's world or whatever. So they immediately wrote her out in the next story, which was the Dalek Master Plan.
Yeah.
And they did it so quickly that the first scene that she actually filmed was her death scene in Dalek Master Plan on a trampoline being thrown out of the airlock or whatever. But you're right. They didn't know what they were doing. They should have kept Vicky on, and they wouldn't have to throw anybody out of airlock. But that's why Sarah Kingdom was there to take on the rest of that story and killed off brutally. Dodo was introduced as an afterthought at the end of the next story, Massacre. And so there you go. And they hired her because they thought she looked like Caroline Ford.
So yes, the early days, a very weird time, but you know what? From what we've seen, they've gotten pretty positive response from the recovery of like the Web of Fear, and and whatnot. So then of course Enemy of the World, and then of course we had the animation recently of Power of the Daleks. So I'd really hope that they are actively pursuing an agenda in which a lot more of these episodes get animated and brought back, because even if we can't find the footage, we have the audio pretty much for all of them. So go out there and if you got the money sinking into it, and put it out there, put it out for at least fill that gap, so that some of these folks who haven't seen these episodes and going on 50 something plus years, at least
can I just say,
fill the hole a little bit. So I just want to say, at least they'll be able to fill the hole a little bit.
Yeah. Well, if I could just say, this is something they should have started over 10 years ago, because as of 2006, they were already animating missing parts of stories. They started with the invasion, and that was very good. And I don't know, I was thrilled to death when I got that DVD, because I was like, wow, this is really cool seeing cartoon Doctor Who. And if they had started, in other words, they foolishly allowed the DVD range to run out of stories to release. And only now they're doing it as an afterthought. And it's like, if this is something they had started years ago, then we'd already have more stories filling the gaps. In other words, it takes time and effort to do this. But also, you wouldn't have had the release of the DVDs losing steam like it did, because they kind of ran out in about 2012 or 2013. And then since then, you get the sporadic release maybe or every now and then. But it's not like they could have kept the flow going. That's all I'm saying.
And just for craps and giggles for you folks out there, this is what the macro looked like. And the scary part is they were brought back in an episode, to Tennant Gridlock, and they looked like that. So I just wanted to give you an idea. My God, it looks like you're being attacked by a bus with claws, man. It's like that's just frightening looking. Imagine if they could do something more with that, especially in animation. Okay, so I just wanted to throw a little exercise out there, take us back to, the early days of Doctor Who, use your imagination a little and see, what would you do in this set of circumstances if that were to happen? And like I said before, and I can't stress it enough, I really hope that there is an active program out there we don't know about where they're actually going to animate some of these episodes and put them back. Well, folks, until next time, that's all I had, unless there's anything else any of you want to throw out before we go. Okay, I see a lot of shaking heads, so I think we're done. Oh, wait a minute. AJ, you got your hand up. Go ahead.
Don't forget, also, Shada was recently released as a animated one.
Yeah, but I don't count that as a missing. It's just that one just wasn't finished. There was a set of circumstances where there was a strike and all that, and they just never finished it. I don't know why they keep referring to it as a lost episode. It just wasn't done. They had existing, I think they shot like 40% of it, and then they had to shut down production and all that. Like they never filmed the TARDIS interior scenes and stuff like that. But at least we did get it back. And matter of fact, we got that beautiful ending scene with Tom Baker, which I thought was incredible. And I wonder, how far away that Lalla Ward actually was for that last scene. Okay. So until next time, everybody, I'm going to sit down. We're going to come up with another topic. We may do another movie review. I just haven't decided which one yet. So until such time, take care. Ta-ta. I'm Steve. Have a great day.